To me, that was the first thing you do. If you're looking at a college readiness level, which is what these standards are called, college and career readiness, who's going to tell you whether they're appropriate? The first grade teacher or someone who's going to be teaching those subjects at the university or post-secondary level? You don't ask people in education schools either. They don't teach math. We have a great deal of confusion in this country about who teaches math at the college level. If you've been to college, you know there is a mathematics department, and that is where math is taught. It's not taught in the schools of ed. It's taught in a mathematics department. And the math department may be a service department for the engineering school or for other areas, but the mathematics department is the place where teaching of math takes place. Nobody asked them, not even in Massachusetts, when we were surrounded by all these public and private universities filled with mathematically literate people. I couldn't get any meeting of them. I kept saying, don't we want to hear from them? Well, the commissioner finally decided, and I'm veering into the math part of it again because this is so clear and telling. The Commissioner of Education, Chester, invited Jason Zimba, as well as Susan Pimentel, to come and explain the standards he was writing. Now, Zimba has a PhD in math and science from Berkeley. He's a bright guy. He's sitting on a hot seat, and they didn't know that they had just thrown out red meat to me, basically. I'm sitting on the Board of Ed, and I'm saying to Jason, and there's a videotape of this whole meeting, because the department is very careful about videotaping all its meetings, and I said, could you explain what college readiness means in mathematics? We had him on the video saying it means minimal college readiness for non-selective colleges. So how could these be rigorous standards? We have parrots flying around everywhere, including in the media, saying these are rigorous standards. Of course they're not. Because high-achieving countries prepare at least some students for the STEM areas. And he went on to say, these are not standards for STEM. If you want to be an engineer, you're going to have to take more math than is in Common Core. Now, where is Jason today? He's in retirement. He's making a lot of money consulting, along with some of the other standards writers, but no one hears from him anymore because he's been caught on video saying that these standards don't prepare for STEM. In the meantime, state boards of ed and departments of ed are trying to justify to U.S. Chamber of Commerce, to ExxonMobil, and to a lot of industrialists or big companies why these standards are so great. And they can't ask Jason to do it because Jason's already on record as saying they don't prepare for STEM. I was just in Louisiana for 3 days talking to a large number of groups there. Louisiana has a need for STEM workers because of what's happening with gas and oil and other resources like that. They may need a lot of other kinds of workers who don't need more than a high school education, but they need some people who are trained, and yet they have Commissioner of Ed, John White, who is a friend of Arnie Duncan's from Chicago, who says the standards are rigorous and wonderful, and they keep saying these lies over and over again. This is what becomes for me, and basically I'm an academic researcher by training, very frustrating because I know they're not internationally benchmarked. I kept asking for the names of the countries and they never gave them to me. Professor Milgram kept asking for the names of the countries and they never gave him the name of the countries. And yet it says on the website, we've been informed by international benchmarking, or we've reviewed the standards documents in other countries. And of course, most other countries don't even have standards documents. They have syllabi. If you've ever been or looked on the web to see what other countries have. For high school, they have syllabi. And the syllabi give you the details of what they think their students should be learning. They may have a Ministry of Education, and they may have inspectors who come to audit what is happening in their own public high schools. But they have syllabi, not standards. And the syllabi are usually pretty clear have to be written in a language that is accessible to the public. And we, of course, got a set of standards, and this is one of my major criticisms. In English, many of them are still gibberish. I've been saying this now for 4 years. They've cleaned up some of the gibberish, but many of them still don't mean anything, because neither David nor Susan knew how to write standards. In math, you have these long, horrendous kinds of standards that collect a lot of different things, and they're called a standard. So it sounds like, you know, clearer, cleaner, fewer. That's another one of the buzzwords. Well, they're not. You just take 10 things, put them together, separated by semicolons and colons and colons. I know that trick. I mean, we have to figure out how to reduce things too in developing standards. But you have to end up with something readable, interpretable, and similarly interpretable by teachers in different schools so that they understand how you're framing whatever they do in curriculum. So you have a problem, and I'm going to move to my list of flaws in ELA in a few minutes, but you have to understand that in the spring of '09, you had a standards development work group that was developing the college readiness standards. That was developed first because they wanted to aim the grade level standards up to this college level readiness at the high school level. And almost every one of those people, there were 24 of them for both ELA and math, were from testing companies. That should have been the first clue. This is '09. First of all, they didn't announce who these people were in '09, and I kept writing to someone, you know, I'm a pest that way. I kept writing to someone at the chief saying, when are we going to find out who's on this committee? And she said, we heard you, Sandra, and I think in July we're going to have an announcement from CCSSO and NGA to let everyone know who's on the committee. And finally, in July, we got an announcement. And it turns out that almost all of them were connected to either ACT, ACT, College Board, Achieve, which was supplying a good number of folks on that committee, and Mark Tucker's group, ACEE. I can explain later if you want me to what these acronyms are for.